Welcome to a full TLDR Wrath guide for Ulduar Hard Modes, because being short doesn't matter if you can do it well. First up is Flame Leviathan. Talk to this guy to activate 4 towers, which give the boss more health, damage, and mechanics. Each one uses beams to give new mechanics to the fight. Red beams leave fire trails on the ground. Moving blue beams freeze you if you touch them, which break with fire damage. Green beams spawn plant ads, which need to be killed. And non-moving blue or white beams drop bombs that deal big damage. Basically, don't touch the beams, and the raid takes a lot of passive damage, so avoid as much as you can. Take 4 siege engines, 5 demolishers, and 4 choppers. Before the fight, make 2 launch teams of 2 big dick range DPS and a healer as demolisher passengers. Have Team 1 load themselves into the catapult before the fight and Team 2 take their place. Team 1 launches as soon as they can to destroy the turrets, while Team 2 keeps the demolishers topped with pyrite. Team 2 launches as soon as the boss stun finishes, so Team 1 can take their place. And choppers pick up the teams on the ground if their demolishers are too far away to keep the circle going. The 2 remaining demolisher passengers should be the players with the highest eye level and do the fight as usual. Keep it going until the boss is dead. Next is XT. To start the hard mode, you need to kill the exposed heart during the first ad intermission. Tank the boss in between these 2 rubble piles instead of the stairs to prevent ads spawning from them. Stack the melee directly behind the boss and the ranged a bit further behind. At 75% when the heart appears, blow last cooldowns and anything else you've got because you only get 30 seconds to kill it, and this will be your DPS check. Once it's dead, the boss goes back to full health and gets modified abilities. Gravity Bomb now drops a void pool when it ends, and Searing Light spawns an ad. The ad pulses raid-wide damage, so needs to be killed ASAP, and have a tank grab it because the melee really hurts. Drop Gravity Bombs off to the left and Searing Light to the right, but you want the ad close enough to the group so you can swap to it without moving, so don't yeet yourself into oblivion. The fight will be pretty taxing on your healers, so try not to RKO the raid with the AoEs. Keep going like this until the boss eventually dies. First inside is Council of Iron. Now for the hard mode, which is done by killing Steelbreaker last. The kill order now becomes Mulgheim, then Brundir, then Steelbreaker. Phase 1 is the same as normal, but killing Mulgheim first. After he's dead, Steelbreaker now casts Static Disruption, targeting a random player at range, making them deal splash damage and increasing their nature damage taken. Ranged should stack in melee range of Steelbreaker and rotate the player running out to bait the cast. And positioning in phase 2 is the most important thing. Stack ranged on one side of Steelbreaker and melee on the other. Then get the tank to hold Brundir on the other side of melee so they're in range of both. This lets melee dodge overload by running to the ranged group but still not get targeted by static disruption. After Brundir dies, stay in the same groups, pop Lust, and blast the boss. After about 10 seconds, the main tank will get Overwhelming Power, a 30-second debuff that kills them when it ends. The boss will keep sniping your tanks like a 14-year-old COD player, so make sure your tank has a soul stone and your druids have rebirth on their bars. And anytime someone dies, the boss gains a damage buff and heals for 20%, but you can and should reduce it with spells like Mortal Strike. It just means that if you die, you're the reason we're still here. Pile as much damage into the boss so you don't lose too many tanks before you can get him down. The first keeper is Freya. 3 ads around the room give the boss new abilities if you leave them alive, but they don't join the fight. Split into raid groups, each with a healer, and spread out around the boss. She now roots players which deal damage and need to be broken, but you can't use freedom or shapeshift, so you'll have to kill them all. Another pre-nerf victory. She spawns beams that deal AoE damage, so move away from them, and she casts a raid-wide hit that silences if you're casting, so healers pop a CD if you need to stabilize. For detonating lashes, bring them low, then have a tank AoE taunt and pull them away. Use frost traps or any slows that you have to kill them away from the raid, because if they're too close, you'll probably fucking die. For conservators, each group should keep to their own mushroom, and phase 2 is pretty much the same as normal version, but swapping every time you get sunbeams as well as bombs. Just burn the boss, and if you don't have any floor inspectors, it should be easy from here. Next up is Hodir. The hard mode for this fight is basically the same, as it's just killing him in under 3 minutes. Making efficient use of the NPC buffs is one of the most important things to beat the DPS check, and obviously don't get hit by shit and die. When breaking the NPCs, break the mages first, then the druids, then the shamans. Split the ranged into 2 groups as the crit buff only affects the closest 6 players, and have them stack in different moonbeams. If the buff is on a healer, get them to run to the nearest group. Ranged can also use the mage fires, but it's not overly important if it'll drop DPS. Save Lust until all the NPCs are broken, and the rest is finding the best cooldown timings for your group. Next is Thorim. Now for the hard mode, which isn't much different until the last phase. To activate it, you need to reach Thorim in under 3 minutes. Sif will stay on top when he jumps down, and she casts Frostbolt Volley, slowing and damaging everyone. She casts Frost Nova on someone, which roots anyone nearby, but it can and should be dispelled. And she summons a moving Blizzard, which you should avoid if you can, but dodging the Lightning Charge frontal is more important. When his Lightning Charge buff starts getting too high, rotate defensives, trinkets, potions, and externals to keep the tanks alive. Squeeze out whatever you can to meet the DPS check, and it's GG. The last keeper is Mimiron. Now for the hard mode, which is one of the hardest in the raid. This is mainly about managing fires and positioning, and will take a while to get right. Fires spawn under 3 players and will spread towards the nearest player. They can be kited to where you want them, and most of it is just keep the fire with the other fire. Start by stacking up and pressing the big red button at the back of the room. This will mean all 3 fires spawn around the same place, so have someone keep them against the wall and out of the way. Just be wary of new fires during the phase, and tanks kite the boss away if they spawn too close. The boss casts Flame Suppressant, which gets rid of all the fires, but only casts it once after 60 seconds, so when it it happens, try to keep the new fires together. During the phase change, stack near the existing fire to keep all of the fire near the rest of the fire, but you might reach the fire cap, so no more will spawn. Use the extra space until you get to phase 2, where the boss starts throwing out frost bombs into the fire to put them out. It's also pretty lethal for players, and they're pretty big, so watch out, as well as the rest of the phase 2 abilities. And as some hand-holding for melee, the boss occasionally puts out any fires around it. Isn't he nice to the lesser classes? Phase 3 now includes fire bots, which have a silence around them and hits anyone near with water spray, but it also puts out fires in range. Let them put out fires, but if they get too close to the raid, move away and nuke them down. Same as normal, collect the 2 magnetic cores, have your warlock move the boss to a safe space, then bring it down, lust, and beat the f out of it. Now for phase 4, which is even more manic with the fires. The boss will use frost bombs from phase 2, but again, move away or you'll probably f***ing die. This is the most hectic part of the fight in the raid, and you will die. A lot. Keep calm, control the fires, and watch out for the bombs so you can eventually get this motherfucker down. Next is General Vezax. Now for the hard mode, which puts pressure on everyone to not take damage. To do it, you need to let 6 vapor ads spawn without killing them, which spawns a new ad, but this means you won't have any mana regen. Only heal what you absolutely have to, but no one should be taking any damage except for the tank. Stack healers on the boss and split ranged into 2 groups, positioned on either side of a shadow crash pool. When a new crash is coming, move out to dodge it, then move back to the edge. When you have 2 pools next to each other, the group not targeted won't have to move to dodge the crash, and can tunnel the boss. Once all 6 ads have spawned, they come together to spawn an Animus while shielding Vezax for 99%. The Animus deals increasing shadow damage while alive, so the longer it takes you, the harder it gets for healers. Heal is normal during this phase, or you'll all die real fucking quick, and pop lust after you hit 50% on the Animus. Blow all CDs to get it down ASAP, but make sure someone keeps an eye on the boss to keep it interrupted. Don't die because you forgot to kick. Once the Animus dies, the fight goes back to normal, but you still take increased shadow damage, so getting hit by the crash will put you in the ground for real. Play the rest as normal and finish off the boss. Finally, we get to Yogg-Saron. Now for the Zero Lights achievement, which will make this guide far too long. You get the achievement by taking none of the keeper buffs, meaning you'll have less damage and healing, less health, and take more damage. But most impactful is having no sanity restoration and unkillable ads in phase 3. In phase 1, don't force spawn any ads to reduce the overall damage. Tank them in the middle, dodge the clouds, and prio kicking Shadow Nova even if they're about to die. During phase 2, assign each of the brain group to a portal so they can maximize the time they have. If any of them are linked together or grabbed by a tentacle just before they go down, it can easily cause a wipe, but this is just RNG bullshit. If it does happen, save Hand of Protection for the grabbers, and if 2 of the brain team get linked far away, swap one of them out. When the brain is close to 30%, wait to push the phase until the tentacles upstairs are just about to die. If you push while they're still up, you'll probably fucking die. In phase 3, tanks and healers are in for a bad time, as the guardians can't die and will stack up over time. When they reach 1%, they'll become immune, and the 3 lowest health will get targeted by the boss after some time. After 10 seconds, they'll heal themselves and anything around them, so assign 3 players to pull them away, 1 to each side and 1 behind. And lastly, Deafening Roar deals raid-wide damage and silences you for a few seconds, which is just annoying. Split your damage to keep the ads low while still having enough damage for the boss, and eventually you might actually get the kill. And lastly is Algalon. Algalon is a simple fight and has 2 phases. He does a fuckload of damage and has a short enrage timer, so don't let the simplicity fool you. Tanks are treated like punching bags, as his melee hit and quantum strike really fucking hurt. And phase punch sends you to the Shadow Realm at 5 stacks, so swap at 3 to 4 and let it drop off before the other tank gets Yu-Gi-Oh'd. Cosmic Smash is 3 void zones under players every 25 seconds that deals fall-off damage, and if you're inside them, you'll probably fucking die. Try not to stand right next to them, but you'll take a shitload of damage anyway. Collapsing Stars are ads that lose health over time, then deal raid-wide damage and drop a black hole when they die. Stand in them to go to the Shadow Realm to win your Grandpa's soul, but also to avoid the Big Bang. This caster one-shot anyone left in the main realm, but if no one's hit, everyone will die, so have a tank or a priest with dispersion take the hit. Leave it till late if you want to min-max damage, as you'll take ticking damage in the Shadow Realm and you can't hit the boss. To clean up unwanted black holes, living constellations are ads that spawn in sets of 3 and need to be kited over them to make them both disappear. They don't do much damage, so just let the off-tank grab and get rid of them. Once you hit 20%, everything despawns and you'll start the burn phase. 4 new black holes appear that spawn ads every 30 seconds, so have the off-tank pick them up and pull them to the boss to cleave them down. Now it's just a race against the clock to beat that enrage timer and kill the last boss of the raid. Congrats on finishing the raid. Thanks for all the support and for 4,000 subscribers. Like and subscribe if you want more classic guides, and I'll catch you in the next one.